Now, in this part, we are going to discuss about the immunity, and this is a term normally we use when we talk about any diseases, especially. Now, what do you mean by the word immunity? The overall ability of the host to fight against the disease causing organism, that is referred to as the immunity. Now, when you talk about the immunity, there are two types of immunity. Now, tell me which are the two types of immunity. The one is called as the innate immunity, and the second one is called as the acquired immunity. Now, this word itself is very clear. Innate means by birth, and acquired means that we are getting after the birth. Okay, so that is a clear cut definition of these two immunities that is present in our body. The first one is the innate immunity. They are non-specific type of the defense, and that is present at the time of the birth. Now, what are the different types of innate immunities? Yeah, innate immunities is of the four different types. Okay, the first one, and again I'm telling these are the things that is normally present in our body at the time of the birth. So the first one is called as a physical barrier, the second one is called as a physiological barrier, third one is the cellular barrier, and the fourth one you will call it as the cytokine barriers. And the other thing that we have to keep in our mind is that they are not specific. Okay, they are not specific, they are generally present in our body, and there is no specificity in their action. Now, let's first discuss about the physical barrier. So, everyone knows that what do you mean by the word physical? Physical barrier means something that can stop the substance from entering. So, what is the physical barrier that is present in our body to the outermost surface? That is the skin. So, skin of our body, they act as the barrier, and we know that with the help of the skin, almost many of the microorganisms can be stopped from entering into our body. Okay, now when we talk about the inner part of our body, your respiratory system, your gastrointestinal part, your urogenital tract, they contain a lining. Okay, and the name of that lining is the mucus, and with the help of this mucus, this they can trap the foreign materials or the microbes from entering our body. Okay, so that is about the physical barrier. Now the next one is the physiological barrier. Now, what are the different physiological things that is present in our body? The first one is the acid. When we learned about the intestine, yeah, digestive system, we have learned hydrochloric acid that is present in the stomach. Then comes the saliva that everyone knows. The mouth contains the saliva, and the eyes that contain the tears. So all these three, especially these three, act as the physiological barrier, and they prevent the microbial growth. Again, I am reminding you they are non-specific type of defense. Now, the next one is the cellular barrier that includes mainly the WBC, then the polymorphonuclear leukocytes like PMN neutrophils, and the monocyte, the natural killer, that is a type of lymphocyte in the blood, as well as the macrophages in the tissues. What they will do, they normally phagocytose. Phagocytose matlab they will capture, they will take up that foreign material and they can destroy that foreign material. Normally we discuss the foreign material here as the microbes. Okay, so that is about the cellular barrier. Now, the cytokine barrier. Cytokine means they are some of the chemical. And what is that chemical here? That is the protein. So, what is the effect? The virus infected cell, they will secrete some protein, and the name of the protein is the interferons. And what this interferons will do? They protect the non-infected cells from the further viral infection. So, already some of the cells are virally infected, and they start producing a chemical, a protein substance called the interferons, and this interferons have the property to stop the further viral infection. Okay, so these are the four types of the innate immunity that we are having at the time of the birth. Now let's see about the acquired immunity, and this acquired immunity is pathogen specific. Okay, this acquired immunity is pathogen specific, and their one important character is that they have the memory. Okay, so first when this pathogen, when the any of these pathogens attack your body, what they do, they produces the antibodies, but these antibodies are of very low intensity. So the antigen normally comes and then attacks, and the infection will start spreading, and what we will do normally, we will take the medicines and that disease will be over. But what about your body? They have the memory, and they have some of the antigens produced in that attack. Now what will happen? The second time the same antigen is coming to your body, that is the subsequent encounter with the same pathogen, then what they will do, they have their memory power and they start their secondary or immunistic response. Okay, so what is this immunistic response? They have the antibodies already produced by the first attack, and when the second time it attack, then what happened, the second antibodies will be produced, and these two set of antibodies are so strong that they can stop that disease causing organism from entering into their body. So that is done with the help of the acquired immunity. Okay, now the primary and the immune system of our body, they are under the control of the lymphocyte. Now which are the two types of lymphocytes we are having? One is called as the B lymphocytes or the B cells, and the other one is called as the T lymphocytes or the T cells. Now what is the function of this B lymphocytes? The B lymphocytes, they directly produce the proteins that is called as the antibodies, and these T cells, they don't directly produce the antibodies, but they will assist the B cells in the production of the antibodies. Okay, so that is a function of the B lymphocytes and the T lymphocytes. So the B lymphocytes produce an army of protein in response to the pathogen into our blood to fight with them, and these are called the antibodies. And the T cells, even though they do not secrete the antibodies, but they help the B cells to in the production of the antibody. Okay, so that is about the B cells and T cell. Now let's see this structure of an antibody molecule. So normally the antibody molecule, they are having the 4 chains. Okay, out of these 4 chains, 2 chains are called as the light chains and the 2 chains are called as the heavy chain. Understand? So the you can see here, and why it is called as light chain, and because of their weight. We can see this is a small fragment and this heavy chain is a large fragment. So because of their weight, we can call one of the chain as a light chain and the other one as the heavy chain. Okay, and here you can see one more thing here. We already told the acquired immunity or the antibody, they are specific. Okay, they are specific in their binding site. So we can see some binding site here, and this binding site is mainly for the antigen. So we know that one lock can fit into a key only, one key can fit into a lock only. So like that, this you can see some shape also. So if the antigen of this shape comes here, then only the antibody will be active. Okay, so this is the antigen binding site. Now here you can see here it's written SS. So what does SS represent? They are the sulfur bond. Okay, now since 2 sulfur are present here, you call them as the disulfide bonding. So this disulfide bonding are binding these 2 chains together. Okay, and normally we represent generally we write it as the H2L2. Okay, now what is this H2L2? That is 2 heavy chains and the 2 light chains. So this antibody molecule is represented by the H2 and the L2. Clear? So this is the structure of the antibody molecule. Now let's see some examples of these antibodies. So we can say IgA, IgM, IgE, IgG. These are the names of some of the antibodies. Okay. Now the next part that we have to study is that whenever you talk about this acquired immunity, there are 2 types of immune responses. One is called as the humoral immune response, and the other one is called as a cell mediated immunity. So first one, the humoral one, and the second one is called as a cell mediated immunity. Now what is this humoral immune response? This is the response that we acquire from the blood. Okay, these antibodies are found in the blood, and the response that they are giving, that you will call it as the humoral immune response. Okay. Now the second type of the response is done by the cell, and this kind of response you will call it as the cell mediated immunity, and the T lymphocytes mediate the cell mediated immunity. Okay, so this humoral immune response is done with the help of the B lymphocytes, and the cell mediated response is with the help of the T lymphocytes. Okay. Now normally we heard about the people like grafting. They are doing grafting. Grafting matlab organ transplantation. And what will be the result of this organ transplantation? You can't simply transplant any of the organ, because we know that whatever thing that is coming into your body, that is an antigen. And what will happen, the antibodies that is produced in our body, they will try to kill that antigen. So even if it is an organ like a heart transplantation we are doing, kidney, liver, so whatever is getting transferred into our body, according to our body, that is a foreign structure. Okay, so automatically what will happen, the antibodies will be produced and antibodies will try to reject that organ. Clear? And which response is occurring there? Is it a humoral response or the cell mediated response? That is a cell mediated response. Okay, so the body is able to differentiate. Our body has the capacity to differentiate what are the cells and what is a non-cell. Matlab, what is present in our body, that is considered as self, and what is we are taking from outside, that is called as the non-self. And normally what will happen, the cell mediated immunity respond and they will do the graft rejection. So if you have to transplant any organ, there are lots of things has to be done, like tissue matching, the blood compatibility, everything has to be done, and you have to get what is that, immunosuppressive reagents also, so that your antibodies will not be produced and rejecting that organ. Okay, so these are the different what we can say, different parts that we are discussing in the acquired immunity. Clear? So the two types, one is humoral immune system, and B lymphocytes are responsible for this, and that is present by the blood. And the next one, the cell is responsible, and that is done with the help of the T lymphocyte. And because of this cell mediated immunity, that is CMI response, the graft rejections will be usually taking place. Clear? And here is the structure of the antibody molecule.